But if you're going to be a running back whose entire profile, basically the only positive thing I can say about it is that he has a really strong explosive rush rate on a tiny number of carries, I would at least like you to be super athletic. And his athleticism is fine. He ran a 4.49. If he had a stronger profile, that certainly wouldn't be disqualifying. Weighed in also light. Weighed in, what was it, 204, 203, I believe he came in at the combine.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. If you're joining us again, welcome in. If you are new here, thanks for joining us in our small corner of the Dynasty landscape. I'm your host, Thomas Tipple. Joining me, as I mentioned, Jakob Sanderson, Ryan Heath, back for another banger of Dynasty advice. A couple of players that caught our eye from the NFL Combine, how we're viewing them for their draft stock and in Dynasty in general. And of course, not everyone could have tested to expectations, and maybe the event as a whole was a little lackluster. We're going to talk about all that and more. I'm excited to get in. Ryan, we'll start with you. Who was a player that really won you over in this draft process?
Yeah, probably the biggest single winner of the Combine to me in terms of a guy that wasn't like super on my radar, but now very much is for fantasy, is Sam Roush out of Stanford. So this is kind of a unique-ish type of tight end prospect to me, where usually with these bigger guys, my usual cutoff is just like 265 pounds. If you're above that, historically, it's very unlikely that you're going to matter for fantasy in the NFL, just because most of those guys end up being deployed primarily as blockers. Roush weighs in at 267 pounds, so usually to my model without any like additional input, that's like, oh, kind of whatever, you're probably a blocker. But that clearly isn't true based on how Roush tested everywhere else. Just to like list off the percentiles: 83rd percentile in speed score, that's weight adjusted 40 time, 93rd percentile in the broad jump, 84th percentile in the weight adjusted 3-cone. That is basically equivalent to Sam Laporta at 20 pounds lighter. That was about as good as how Roush's time was if he were Laporta's weight. So yeah, he's a legit athlete. He had the best vertical by 4.5 inches of any tight end at the combine over 265 pounds this century. So yeah, Roush is like of a different category than your typical big, heavy tight end. And yeah, he's just kind of a fun day two sort of sleeper. He's really big, so not that worried about him like staying on the field or anything like that, as you might be for a lot of the tight ends in this kind of draft class. And the production stats are also pretty decent. His best season reception share is third best in this class, behind Tanner Koziol and Eli Stowers. That's just for 2025. But yeah, he's got some receiving production to him as well. He was relevant in 2024, competing with Alec Ayemaner, who went to the NFL as well. So there's like something to his receiving profile production-wise as well. So yeah, just seeing how athletic he is just puts him on my radar for fantasy, whereas he really kind of wasn't that much before.
Yeah, he's your classic, gonna slide into your second round now, late second of your rookie drafts for sure, just based on everything that you mentioned. I like that one. Jakob, who caught your eye at this year's combine more than others?
Well, you guys are both like total hipsters. I mean, there was like two guys that everybody was talking about out at the combine, and then you guys both picked different people. So I'll be boring. I mean, first, if you want more of my thoughts on the tight ends at the combine, I posted a whole thread about it and gotten an interesting discussion with a bunch of other people. So I'll lean outside of the tight ends for now. I'll go with running backs. I mean, I think the biggest winner at the combine is Mike Washington Jr. Because I think he's the one that drastically most increased his stock relative to his position. This was a guy that I did a Dynasty roundtable a couple days prior to the combine with Davis and Pat. And I think we spent maybe a couple minutes on Mike Washington Jr. He was kind of one of this morass of backs in like the running back 5 to 10 range coming in here. I think when we had Brett on here, he had him up at running back 5. That was one of the higher rankings I'd even seen on him to that point. So this was a guy that was on the radar, but not separating himself in any major way. Comes in at the combine, weighs up at 223 pounds and runs that 4.33. Absolutely fantastic speed score. And not only does he do that, but we're going to get into the losers soon. The rest of that kind of second tier of running backs, not a great combine for them. And so all of a sudden, Mike Washington, probably went into the combine as a guy, if you, for whatever reason, were really invested in the success of Mike Washington, you're hoping can sew up sort of the top of that tier 3 of running back to now a guy who probably is like legitimately in contention to be the RB2 of this class. I've already seen a lot of takes on Twitter that he's the RB2. What do I think of this guy? I don't know, man. He's a 5-year player. He played his last year at Arkansas, but prior to that was all at smaller schools. Didn't really have anything notable in his profile in previous years from a volume perspective or from an efficiency perspective. He did have a nice year this season. Missed tackle rates poor, but really strong explosive numbers and adequate receiving production. Had 28 receptions this year. Concerns for him would really just be age. The only plus season we have on his profile is coming as a 5th-year player. And pass blocking, major issue for him. But in this class, I think he would have been like my RB 10 or 11 in last year's class. In this year's class, given what we've seen from some of the other guys, I wouldn't be shocked if, when I finish my pre-draft rankings, I have him at like the RB3 or the RB4. And if he ends up going on day 2, there's a lot of teams out there that seem like they could use a starter or a guy that could have a chance to develop into a starter, and he's put himself firmly in that conversation. So he like right now we might see him go in like the end of first round of dynasty drafts. That's how crazy weak this class is.
And yet you're still going to hear that the back end of the first round got boosted by so much here. It didn't. It didn't. It just helps. I think what actually happened is that there are just now players that we can actually target in those spots, which feels like the back end of the first round got a boost when really we don't even really know what the middle of the first round is going to look like, let alone getting in to the second round. I like that one there. I have to stay on brand for mine. There's no way around it. You're right. It's a little hipster-ish for sure. But I think Ty Simpson came away from the combine with a bit of a boost. We had Brett Whitefield on, like Jacob mentioned, and, we really didn't want a 1-year starter, getting that, opportunity, say, in New York, etc. But it really does sound like he's going to go in the first round, whether we think he should or not. And the quarterback depth across the league is severely lacking. We are talking about teams potentially calling on recently retired and former favorite of this program, Derek Carr, to come out of retirement. Andy Dalton getting phone calls. The NFL needs quarterbacks and someone that plays about as close to the line as you can in quarterbacks for a super flex dynasty player. I need quarterbacks. So any opportunity for a quarterback to potentially go in the first round and not in that top 5, maybe he ends up going kind of mid, a little bit later in the first round, that puts him in a pretty decent scenario to at least have a chance to succeed. Now, what's the downside? He doesn't really run that much, doesn't really run that well. You can see that with some of his testing. He's probably going to grade out like your regular pocket passing quarterback. The height, I think, is okay, but it's not great. 6'1", didn't run, like I said, didn't run very well when you compare to like, obviously, I mean, if you ran like Taylor Green, we'd be talking about a completely different type player. Speaking about a guy that boosted his stock value, that guy is getting drafted like Milroe was last year, even though Milroe was an even better prospect, but there's question marks with him. I think you're obviously going to get Mendoza that goes really early, but I think he did a lot of good. Ty Simpson did at the combine, everything that he tested with. I just think he really helped boost his stock, which is going to help boost his stock in Dynasty overall, which is a major plus for people. I mean, we were starting Phillip Rivers last year. I think we need this. That's how bad the NFL has gotten with quarterback play. I'll take a shot on him. I thought he did really well for himself.
So I think all three of us just gave three good names that are going to be good for people to learn about, be a little more educated on. Should we just talk about the two tight ends, though? I do feel like people are going to want our opinions on Sadiq and on Stowers.
Let's do it.
I have thoughts, but yeah, I'll turn it over to both of you guys first, just to kind of throw in what people are probably expecting out of this episode.
So I posted about the tight ends on Twitter and about Sadiq specifically. I think I have maybe a slight disagreement with aspects of the Dynasty community on tight end stuff. It's definitely not that I don't think speed matters. I think speed matters a lot. Scott pointed out, and I fully agree with him, the amount of hits that we have that are truly unathletic, that are below, whatever your speed score threshold cutoff is like basically Kyle Rudolph and Zach Ertz, and that's about it. So I think it's necessary. I just don't think it's sufficient. And we've seen in recent years, it's not really just Sadiq. It's a lot of these tight ends that have these crazy combines, most of whom, to be fair, are much worse prospects than Kenyon Sadiq. Like a Theo Johnson or a Jelani Woods. And I constantly see people, it's tight end. Production doesn't matter. It's just the athleticism. It's an athleticism position. And I think that maybe that was more true earlier. I know when I was going back and forth with Scott, he brought up some interesting names like Darren Waller, who was a wide receiver convert, Logan Thomas, who's a quarterback convert, Jimmy Graham and Antonio Gates, who were basketball players. I think that in that era, maybe this was a little bit more true because you more consistently were able to have defenses just sitting in base personnel no matter what. And so you could play these receiving tight ends in line and just mash them. That's not really the case anymore. The types of tight ends and the types of matchups you get are a little bit more complex, in my opinion. And what we've seen in recent years is that the recent big hits at the position, which I would classify as McBride and Bowers and Laporta and Fannin and Loveland, like perhaps Tyler Warren, these are all guys who had really sterling production profiles. And they also had the sufficient athleticism, but they had both. This wasn't just an athlete getting drafted up there and figuring it out in the pros. So I do have significant concerns with Sadiq, despite the athleticism. Primarily that he's not the Y tight end type. He weighed in at 240 pounds. So anytime you have a tight end at 240 pounds, you have route participation concerns. And unlike other recent smaller tight ends, like a Brock Bowers, like a Colston Loveland, I've not seen, either in the production profile or on film, consistent examples of him routing guys up, of him splitting out against corners and winning on dig routes and slant routes and wide receiver type routes. I've seen him do more yards after catch, athleticism, tight end stuff. And that is the type of production that I think is more replicable if you're able to play in line in the NFL and get favorable matchups against linebackers. So I just don't see a great fit for me between what I've seen him be able to do, his wide receiver skills, and then what his actual size is and what his NFL role is. So I continue to have concerns with him. I think he's going to be clearly a first-round pick in the NFL draft. I think he's a worthy first-round rookie pick in this draft. Where I get significant concerns is I've seen people pushing him above like Jordan Tyson or even above like other first-round wide receivers. I don't think that I will rank him above. I definitely won't rank him above Tyson. If Concepcion goes in the first round, I think I would rank Concepcion above him. If Boston goes in the first round, I think that would be where it gets to be a toss-up for me. So I am a little lower on him. And I just think mostly it's because I'm trying to think in terms of what does the combine tell me about this player and how they actually project in a vacuum versus, I'm sort of just trying to enter things into this aggregate of how things correlate at the position. I'm trying to be a bit more specific.
Yeah, I have largely similar thoughts. Because, while Sadiq tested as, per my Spork model and per a lot of the models, like the best athlete of the century at the tight end position, yeah, all of the caveats that Jakob is bringing up here definitely apply. You can argue that the athleticism for these types of tight ends that aren't always in line, that aren't getting as favorable of matchups, might matter even less. And yeah, the road is kind of paved with the corpses of the hyper athletic Noah Fant and Evan Engram types, even for guys that have gone in the late first. It's not like a guaranteed ticket to NFL production or even like an every down NFL role as these guys' careers have gone on. And yeah, with that said, to provide like even more color for what Jakob is talking about when he says the production profile isn't as amazing compared to some of these other recent hits. Sadiq finished in 2025 outside the top 20 among FBS tight ends in receiving yards per team pass attempts. He was third on his own team in receiving yards per game, behind Moore, who is amazing but true freshman, and behind Malik Benson, who's probably going to go undrafted this year. Even like in the context of if you age adjust, schedule adjust, program adjust, all that stuff, he comes out way closer to an Evan Engram in my model preliminarily than to some of these elite tight ends like that we've seen over the last handful of years, the Tyler Warrens, the Brock Bowers, those types. So yeah, that's about where I am at on Sadiq too. And that's even including like these massive boosts for the athleticism. If you want to take those away, he's further down around like the Michael Mayer, Harold Fenton range in my model, as I was tweeting out before the combine. So I think that's a more representative of the caliber of fantasy prospect we're dealing with. Yeah, certainly has upside, but I would definitely not be considering him over the top three at the wide receiver position. I haven't gone much deeper than that at wide receiver yet, but yeah, I imagine there's going to be a couple around one wide receivers outside of those guys that I might prefer. I think that's totally reasonable as Jakob laid out. So yeah, I am not a Kenyon Sadiq 105 rookie pick guy whatsoever. He would cap out at 106 at the absolute maximum for me in tight end premium, and I'm not even sure he's going to get there when all said and done.
I think we've been spoiled by tight end of late and how productive they have been. And I feel like somebody like Sadiq is going to really be the apple of a dynasty manager's eye. I need to have him. That's Brock Bowers' upside. Look at Kyle Pitts when he was, potentially the 101 in tight end premium leagues. We're going to see how draft capital affects this as well. But I really feel like people are going to fall in love with the flashiness of the player and less about my first read on this is that people will ignore a lot of what Ryan just broke down for you and go, yeah, but he's one of the best athletes we've ever seen. And so I'm more aligned with you guys than not. I just feel like just the tight end landscape. Tyler Warren, we would consider that a great rookie year. We love him. And now people are already tear him down to Laporta. So really, what is a hit at tight end when you really break it down? So I'm with you guys on this. I'm not blown away by athletes being athletes, even historically good athletes. I think there needs to be more of a complete package, and I don't really see it. To a lesser extent, we've kind of seen this too. Look at Arroyo last year, phenomenal athlete, decent enough prospect, and he got Barnard. So like you guys said, I think we've been spoiled a little bit. I think the production profile leaves a lot to be desired. Interesting to see where he goes in the draft.
Who knows? I think the most likely outcome to me is that he's a good NFL player who who maybe hovers closer to 70% routes than like 85, 90% routes. And that he's an efficient player that has a lot of wow plays, but is probably more of a second or third option in a passing game. I think that's the most likely. Now, he's also really young and he has ridiculous athleticism, and he's going to get opportunities from draft capital. And like, while we're talking about his production profile being lacking, it's not nothing, right? This isn't like he does. So yeah, I mean, it's possible he develops into a fantastic receiving tight end and a real vertical threat. I think it's all within the range of outcomes. But if you're asking most likely scenario, I think he's closer to like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example. Like I would say the most likely career for him would be like an Eric Ebron career.
Yeah, I'll largely agree with Jacob on like most likely outcome for fantasy. I think it's very likely he goes on day one in the NFL. It seems likely he was consistently being mocked inside the top 20 pretty much everywhere, even before the combine. I can't imagine that that's going to slip at all. So yeah, that would be my expectation for his draft capital, mid to late first round. And the nice thing about that for him, at least compared to some of the other tight ends in this class, is if you are taking a tight end that high, you at least hope that team has a coherent plan for, even if this isn't like an every down inline tight end, like they're going to have a plan to actually deploy him in their offense. Sort of like we saw with Harold Fannin this past year, where the Browns, to a large extent, kind of created all their personnel packages around like, we're going to have Harold Fannin on the field because he's really good and we like him. I expect similar for Sadiq, at least to start with. So that's nice, and that's something that you can't necessarily say for some of these other kind of lighter receiving tight ends that are going to go later, because yeah, once you get past the first round, I wouldn't like just automatically expect a team to have a coherent plan. I mean, we could talk about Stowers. It's largely like, I'll go quicker with him. It's largely similar to me in terms of the athleticism and how much does it matter. I think people are under even less illusion that Stowers is ever going to be an inline player. He weighed in a lot lighter. That's just kind of not really his game. He is like way more clearly in the kind of Dalton Kincaid, Evan Engram, like receiving only mold. At least that seems to be like the median film opinion around. The production is genuinely more like eye-popping, at least in like a raw sense, than it is for Sadiq. But yeah, so while the production overall is better, I think the risks of the downside risks, is this an every down player for fantasy? Does he get Dalton Kincaided, is higher for Stowers. And I think the criticism of Stowers was the fifth best all-time tight end in the Spork athleticism model for me, but I think it's an even bigger question sort of does this actually matter for a player of his archetype as it might for another tight end? Because he is physically very comparable to a wide receiver like Chase Claypool, for example, who dynamic player in the NFL at times before kind of like all the stuff off the field caught up to him with Chase Claypool. But it's not necessarily like, oh, this is a plug and play, like high volume fantasy receiver for every single offense in the league.
Yeah, I totally agree with Ryan. I think Stowers, he's not going to get the round one draft capital, so you're not going to get teams that are necessarily going to force him into routes. He is to me a very conventional receiving tight end, more so than Sadiq. But it's just totally a matter of routes to me, and it's so hard for me to prognosticate on what his routes look like when I don't know what team he's on, what coach he has, what his other teammates are at tight end and wide receiver. Like, Stowers is going to be a guy that like I'm going to have to rank somewhere pre-draft, but I would be deeply uncomfortable like having a strong opinion on pre-draft relative to value, because it's going to be a lot of situational tea leaf reading one, and that applies to Michael Trigg as well. That just these lighter receiving only tight ends, it's just super situation dependent.
not everybody can walk away from the combine a runaway winner, stocks up, wheels up, to the moon, whatever other dynasty analyst phrase you want to use. Unfortunately, some people walk away with a lowered stock. So we're going to talk about the losers from the combine, some people that we think really kind of did some damage to their public perception. Ryan, who do you have?
I've got Emmitt Johnson, who out of this running back class was one of the guys after Love that I was kind of hoping to like, in terms of we just need to find some running backs to actually like in this class to talk ourselves into. I was hoping Johnson could be one of them, but I think now it's pretty clear that he will not be someone I'm talking myself into whatsoever. His combine was largely just disappointing. Weighed in about where he needed to at 202 pounds, but he ran slow relative to that. He was the only running back to participate in the 3-cone, and he probably shouldn't have. He came in below the 10th percentile weight adjusted for that event at the position this century. There are only a handful of guys that have even gotten drafted with agility that bad since 2010. And the list is like Devin Singletary and then a bunch of day 3 guys that have never done anything. Jaquiz Rogers is on that list, which is kind of funny. Trevion Williams, meme player from a decade ago, Gary Brightwell, Quadre Ollison. Like these are ugly, ugly names that are comparable to Johnson from an agility perspective. And that's a big deal to me for a couple of reasons. One is that Johnson was not very productive or didn't command like much volume in college until his final season. He was in a split backfield up until then. My model in general does not like the one-hit wonder types at running back, and even in that season, his like creation metrics, as Jacob dubs them, were not awesome in terms of generating yards after the catch or yards after contact. So with Johnson being like a 202-pound running back that at best is going to go late day 2, you kind of want him to be like an efficiency type. He's a solid enough pass catcher by the metrics, at least. Like I could see him carving out an NFL role in that sense. But like none of the names I just listed off that are close to him athletically are at anywhere near are like these really strong efficiency, like change of pace guys, efficient 10 to 15 touch type backs. That's like not really what his profile looks like. And it's kind of what you want him to be to get into having NFL success. So yeah, now after this combine, I just think it's very likely he falls further in the draft, potentially even to day 3. And it's just not an attractive profile that I want to bet on from that kind of starting point, where I don't think that's somebody that's going to demand touches in an NFL backfield, give coaches reasons to get him involved on the ground. Could really just end up being like a kind of dusty and boring, like third down-ish type of back, and that's not a type that I'm ever that interested in for fantasy, at least to spend rookie draft picks on, because those types are kind of plentiful around the league and in free agency, and it's much more like opportunity driven with injury than it is this guy's going to play himself into a role.
Hard to argue with any of that. Jacob, what do you got?
Yeah, I fully agree with everything Ryan said on Emmitt Johnson. I'll give you another big combine loser. This to me is the biggest one because I think his game is the most reliant on being really athletic, and that's Jadarian Price, who was seen as the presumptive RB2 in the class entering the combine. And we were getting rumors of him sneaking into the late first, which I thought was ridiculous. But anyways, but we're talking about a college backup who has basically no receiving profile. And so his whole profile is kind of this black box of what could be under the surface if he wasn't playing behind Jeremiah Love. And to his credit, the creation metrics, as I say, are really strong with him. How you factor those in when we're talking about a back who's getting like 100 carries a year and his metrics are being weighed against backs with 250, 300 carries a year is in the eye of the beholder. But if you're going to be a running back whose entire profile, basically the only positive thing I can say about it is that has a really strong explosive rush rate on a tiny number of carries, I would at least like you to be super athletic. And his athleticism is fine. He ran a 4.49. If he had a stronger profile, that certainly wouldn't be disqualifying. Weighed in also light. He weighed in, 204, 203, I believe he came in at the combine, which is, we had like Daniel Jeremiah or whatever calling him a 3-down back, which I thought was fucking ridiculous. But like, now he's not even the size of like your prototypical Tracy 3-down back that NFL media loves to talk about. So like, what are we doing here? So we have like a guy who's like average speed for an NFL starter, who's below average height and weight, has no receiving profile. Like, I don't really know what that is at this point. Like, I guess maybe in like a dream world, it could be James Cook, but like, that is such a singular profile for that to have worked out the way that it did, that like it's way more likely he's like Kenyon Drake at best, but like, I don't know, insert like any random change of pace back who doesn't get receiving workload is like more likely. Like, so we were getting Christine Michael comps. At least Christine Michael was athletic. So I'm pretty out on Jadarian Price at this point. We'll see where he ends up going in the NFL draft, but I have a really hard time getting excited about much of anything with him.
Yeah, I can't. And the funny thing about the James Cook thing, if you remember, people were out on him because of that profile. He was one of my favorite picks at like 205. One of our most popular clips ever was when I started freaking out that people started pushing him into like 108. I was freaking out because I wanted them to stop. And really, in Dynasty, he only recently started to be viewed as even an upper tier asset, regardless of how good he was. He had to prove so much, and a lot of it came back to that profile. So that's the upside case. And like you just mentioned, it is rare for that to hit. It took perfect scenario, great team, perfect offense, and then he just did what he had to do and ball out. I'm with you.
The only thing I wanted to quickly add on Price as well that kind of dovetails with a lot of Jacob's concerns that he brought up is the James Cook is basically the one example of a running back with a below average athleticism profile, speed score, all of that, that also was not much of a pass catcher that actually hit in like a fantasy relevant way at all. Price's speed score is 99.9. 100 or 105 is usually like the cutoff people use to say, okay, this is at least a little bit of a red flag, at least based on historical production, how these guys have gone on to perform in the league. It's by no means a hard cutoff. Like there are plenty of guys even below a 100 speed score like Price's, like an Alvin Kamara, an Aaron Jones that were massive hits, right? But like the theme you notice is once you get in that range of athleticism, it's very much the pass catchers that are hitting. Kamara, Jones, Christian McCaffrey, just above a 100 speed score, but an amazing pass catcher. All these profiles that don't have that elite size adjusted speed that end up mattering are the pass catchers. Price has never hit even a 10% target per out run rate. Even in the seasons that he actually like ran more than 30 routes, like a relevant number. So yeah, I am largely with both of you guys on Price. I expect he's going to go in the late first of Dynasty rookie drafts and probably at some point on day 2 of the real NFL draft. But if that's like the price, I'm probably not going to be that interested. I think that's based a lot more on like projection, on the film cognoscentes takes on him, which are generally a lot more positive than we're giving. I'm just not usually that excited by this type of prospect. I don't think that you actually win that much, even if you're right most of the time.
My biggest loser this year is the combine. It is just generally the NFL combine as a whole. I remember this event being the premier event. Can't miss. Top prospects wanted to go out and show out. And this year, I don't know if it's just the draft class specifically, but even the participation rate is dropping to a point where this year, more than any other year, I am seeing that it needs to be fixed. We need to have minimum participation limits. There has to be if you go there, you have to do drill X, drill Y. It's not the same event. There are so many other ways to get data and information. Players are choosing their pro day to allow them to be more comfortable, placing that as a more of a priority, let's say. We're not seeing Love running genuinely surprised me. Like, it was a genuine shock to me that the most elite player for us anyway as fantasy players ran what he did. We just assumed he wasn't going to. It's like a believe it when I see it type thing. And I think this is going to continue to be a problem. I don't think you're going to see prospects the way that Ken Walker went out and ran, even though we're pretty sure he was going to get drafted pretty damn high with his profile. I think the combine is in trouble. And I think it showed. I heard more talk personally about free agent to be quarterbacks, the running back market for veterans, more than I heard about the impact of the combine. And unless you're deep in the weeds, you're a film scout, a film guru, or people that work in the industry like, say, Ryan and Jacob here that use that data for models and prospecting, etc. I think the combine for players does not matter the way we have teams not even sending GMs and coaches and all their scouts to the combine now. I don't remember when the last time that was so prominent that teams are just like this. Okay, we'll do our own work and move forward. I think the combine took a big hit just in general. And I think the players are the ones kind of picking up that maybe it's not as important for their prep process as it used to be.
Yeah, there's a couple things here. I think one is when people say, like, we have to save the combine, we need to make these changes so that more athletes are participating and it's like more of an event and there's like more to watch on TV and that type of thing. I think, unfortunately, what you're seeing is the consequence of like the social media world that we live in these days. If you told me, if I was entering the NFL draft process and my agent told me, okay, at the combine, you're going to have to speak to the media, you're going to have to prepare for all of these team interviews, you're gonna get measured and all that. And if you want, you can compete in the events, or you can wait 3 to 4 weeks for the pro day to do all the testing and just focus on the media, the interviews, all of that, everything else in the process. I think most 21 to 24-year-olds are going to say, okay, I'll not put it all on my plate right now. Outside of the guys that they know are going to test incredibly well and therefore have a ton to gain from running, from participating in all of the testing workouts, there's just little reason to actually run at the combine, to do all of the events, to do the broad, to do the vert, all of that, when it's clear that teams don't care whether you run at the combine or your pro day. Apparently teams just use their like hand-timed scout times at the combine because those directly compare, or more so directly compare, to the hand-timed scout numbers at pro days, which is very funny from the perspective of a nerd like me that's like, oh, I can't use pro day times in my model, or you have to adjust them, which you do, but teams are just like, yeah, whatever. We don't care. We'll just use hand times the whole time. Those compare to each other. So with all of that, and with the aspect of the media circus that you have to prepare for, which we saw firsthand with like the reaction to Makai Lemon being weird and awkward at a podium for a few minutes. And we see it every single year with a guy that runs a little slower than expected. People just can't be normal about it. Even if it doesn't affect ultimately what NFL teams think, I totally get it why I would, as a player or as an agent, want to minimize my exposure to that downside and like to creating that media circus, and just focus solely on what I can control, like the minimum that I have to complete at the combine, just to make sure that there aren't any missteps like that like kind of throw me off in the entire process. Like I can't imagine that Makai Lemon is like really happy with how he interviewed and how people reacted to it. I shouldn't say how he interviewed. We don't know how he interviewed outside of people on the internet claiming to have heard how he interviewed. But yeah, with what happened when he was at the podium, I can't imagine he's happy about that just mentally. I can't imagine that doesn't feel like a roadblock or like a misstep or whatever in his mind. I would just want to avoid all that if I were a player. So I totally get it. And the reason the combine is dying is, one, because we insist on having all of this stuff at it at the same time, maybe do interviews 2 weeks before or something. And also because of, just the attention grabbing, constant like reinforcement information society that we live in, unfortunately just kind of makes it harder, I think.
It's not even the social media aspect of that, what happened at that podium. You don't think a team is looking at being like, I don't know if he's going to fit in the media environment here. Like, yeah. Oh no. And NFL teams are slow to realize, like, to accept the players' not even faults, but just oddities at times. Who knew? Who knew? Like, they see it and they react just like people on the internet do. And it's kind of insane. Not to mention, if I'm a player and I want to be judged at my absolute best, those days are long. Like, combine days are long. There was a time where some of these guys aren't finished on the field until 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. These are long days. You're stretching multiple times. You're warming up you're not always able to be at your best. So I would choose imagine for quarterbacks, let's say. You're going to go to a combine and throw to a bunch of guys you don't know, you've never played with. And if you miss a throw, that is all that is going to be shown on every tape and draft tape over and over. Why wouldn't I go to my school where I am comfortable in my environment and throw to the guys that helped me get there? It just makes more sense to me. And if it makes more sense to me as a guy that's talking into this microphone to post a video on YouTube and a podcast, I'm pretty sure an agent, a coach, and a player is going to look at that and go, yeah, I don't have to do that. I'm still going to get drafted where I'm going to get drafted. So I think the combine has a problem. And I think we really saw it this year. We really saw it.
The only thing I'll add, and it's not much, because I agree with all of you, everything that you guys said about the rationale for these players and whether or not doing as much at the combine. It's just I don't know how everybody creates their models, but you should be aware that there's going to be a major survivorship bias effect to combine performances as less and less people are doing them. And so naturally, the players at this point in time who are willing to do some of these drills, I mean, there's all sorts of various reasons why people don't. And a lot of it is just they're assured of their draft capital. And sometimes it's just that they felt a cramp in their hamstring that morning or whatever. But all things being equal, we're going to see more of the players who think they can benefit their draft stock with athletic testing, test athletically, and the players who don't think so, not do so. And they're going to pick and choose drills that they think benefit them, and they're going to sit out of the drills that they don't think benefit them. So how each individual, how the group of times in each of these different drills evolves over the years is going to be fascinating to watch, and we're going to see ultimately players post better and better and better times on aggregate. And so, these headlines you see this year about fastest combine ever, we're just going to keep seeing those because we're going to keep seeing more players skip. And so how you address that if you have these large databases and you're using percentile scores and such, it's going to create a little bit of a higher threshold on the players who are actually participating, just based on that. So something to watch out for, I think. But ultimately, the good news is that I think the combine generally matters less than people think that it does anyways. So I don't think it should hurt us too much in Dynasty.
No, I agree. Just it does suck. It used to be a must-watch event, dude. I remember leaving school because it was on like during the day. I would leave school, I would dip so I could run home and watch offensive lineman running is like one of my favorite things. Like, it is so fun to watch O-lineman test, and it's still very important for them. Obviously, you see a lot of O-linemen and D-linemen and linebackers and DBs. It feels like not a lot has changed for them. We're obviously focused on the running backs, the wide receivers, and because we play fantasy, not IDP fantasy. I think you guys are a whole different breed of insane, and shout out to you guys. It kind of does suck to see it dwindle just on a personal level. Like, I loved watching Ken Walker go out there and do the things that people said he couldn't do. He can't catch a football. I don't know. I cut up a pretty nice video of him running pretty good routes. He's using his hands to catch the ball, prove that he could do it. And sure enough, in the NFL, guess what? He actually can do it. It is possible. It just sucks to see, but again, totally understandable. We're just going to get to see it at the pro day where it probably makes more sense for them. So that was my biggest loser, was the NFL and the combine in general. So that's it. Winners and losers from the NFL combine with a little bit of a bonus. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you. Leave a like. Hit that subscription button. It is free to do. It helps us go a long way in the world of algorithms over here on YouTube. Leave a comment and let us know who you think the biggest winners and losers are. Maybe something we got wrong, you don't agree with. If you're listening to this on Spotify, you can do the same. Leave a 5-star review. Same thing. It's free to do, and it goes a long way to helping us. For Ryan, Heath, Jakob Sanderson, I'm Thomas Tipple. This is Dynasty Points. Remember that clear eyes and full hearts can never lose, and that your best days are always spent tilting.